Hello. Seems to be a little bit of a delay. Why is that so slow? Right, just having some technical difficulties. Bear with me a moment. Hello. I seem to be having a little bit of trouble here.
Oh,
Hello.
I'm here. Hey.
Hi. Can you hear me? Okay, because on my side it's super slow.
I can hear
Everything's
you
delayed.
fine, yeah.
Okay, that's weird. Just on my screen, it's like everything is like super delayed and really slow for some reason.
I had that problem when I was setting up the stream, but apparently on the actual like YouTube side of it, it was fine.
Yeah,
So it
no,
might be the same here. I'm not too sure.
probably. Yeah, it's just been really weird. Like just trying to get it to all work out. It's like I'm super delayed, but anyway, you can hear me fine. I can hear you fine. So that's all that matters. How you doing, man?
Well, I'm doing I'm doing fine, given the circumstances of last night. I actually fell over on the way home, and I literally, when I woke up, my hands are covered in cuts and everything. I thought I was attacked by like a cat. It
I
was
just
it,
I just can't do it anymore. I'm not built for that anymore. Not built for that life.
it's horrific because like not only that, but like the back of my head kind of hurts. Like I really took a tumble. Like I woke up and there's a little mark on my forehead and everything. Like it's crazy. I don't know. Like, and I've literally wiped out at one point. Don't know where I was going home. I remember the fall, and then after that, nothing. So like, but I woke up in my own bed. So obviously, I didn't die. You
Yeah,
know? So it's fine anyway.
it
It
all
was
worked
just
itself out. You
it worked
survived.
itself
That's the
out.
important
Yeah,
thing.
so I mean somehow like I'm just an idiot. But anyway, I'm excited to talk about some Marvel
Yep,
games. I was gonna
yep.
say Marvel and DC, but there isn't a lot going on over there.
I mean, we can touch on Suicide Squad. I'll be honest with you, I keep forgetting that game is coming out. Like genuinely, like every time I see something about it, I'm like, oh, that exists.
I
Um,
I can just sense the general like Avengers in Suicide Squad, and it's sort of
mhm,
getting a bit like, oh man, like it's almost frustrating to even hear about the game now, even when they advertise it, because I'm like, right, guys, it's going to be a live service, right? It's going to be whatever you're trying to make of it. You cannot fix that public perception. That will stay there. Even if it becomes a full story game, if you have even a single microtransaction now, you're going to get that bad press. So just deal
yeah,
with it. Like, it doesn't matter how long you delay it, just stand by it.
yeah, 100%. I agree.
Because
I'm not.
the
I'm
delays
not
don't
really.
yeah, the
Go on.
delays don't feel like they're for actually the game. It feels like they're just sort of like, let's try and restart the marketing campaign again and hope that people like us better this time.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't work. It's yeah.
No, I agree. I'm not feeling it. Like until I see a lot more and they kind of I don't know, it doesn't seem to be doing anything unique or special. They're moving away from what made the Arkham games great in the first place. Like I of all people, you know what I'm like. I'm more than happy for them to go down the co-op route and the online route. And like, being able to play online with people and stuff. But it I wanted that with like the Arkham, which is kind of like what Gotham Knights tried to do, but yeah. Anyway, let's get on to Marvel. Um so first things first, you actually made a video on this the other day. Is EA/Motive's Iron Man. So what we know about that, it's being made by Motive, the guys behind Star Wars Squadrons, the Dead Space
You're
remake.
doing you're lagging a little bit. You're sort of it sounds like you're like a bit of a robot.
Oh,
Oh
two
wait, it's
sec.
fine now.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Oh,
I've
it's
just
gone
kind
weird
of,
again.
I've just, yeah. There's definitely something going on with this. Let me just try switching. I might just disappear for a second as I try and switch back to my main. Mm, How's that?
Yeah, that works. And your webcam isn't delayed anymore either.
Okay, cool, sweet. So EA Motive's Iron Man. It's made by the guys behind Dead Space, Star Wars Squadrons. I think they worked on Star Wars Battlefront 2 on some of the space combat stuff. So I know I haven't played Dead Space myself. Not really the kind of thing I play, like horror games generally, but I've heard really good things about it. Um, but yeah, you made the video on that yesterday, so I don't know if you want to kind of quickly recap what you were talking about there.
Yeah, so with the Iron Man game, I was saying that when it comes to the open world environment and stuff like that, one of the things that I think would be really lame is if it just turns out he's just in New York. Like, we've seen that already, and Iron Man
Yeah,
isn't really a character that's set in one place. He never has been. Most of the Avengers, you could say the same thing. So,
yeah,
like, I think that being able to have multiple regions would be really sweet. I think that, like, kind of like God of War sort of thing, where it's like loads of different kind of big areas to explore, I think would be really sweet. Because, I mean, yeah, it can be open world, but like it doesn't necessarily have to be like, or just one area. Like there can be multiple big exploration places. So that was kind of my point is that, not to bring this up, but the like a war table like thing, right? Where you just go to different regions and stuff like
no,
that. I
I
think that would be pretty
100%
cool.
agree. I 100% agree. Like it would be weird to have Iron Man just fixed to one location. He's very much like a global hero. So when I was watching that video, I was like, yeah, this makes total sense. They could do it either like a war table system or maybe As far as I ever remember correctly, it's confirmed to be open world. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but it could be like a sort of Jedi Survivor slash God of War approach where they have realms, and in Jedi Survivor you've got the open world hubs, but they're like on the planetary system, and that's kind of like a war table. So they could be taking that approach where it's like semi-open world, like hubs, like you said. I'm just going to take a second to shout out. I just got a super sticker off Sword. I hope I'm saying that right. Um,
It's red.
is that Rid? Oh my god,
It's red.
thank you. I thought it was because I know that's his name on Reddit. So thank you, Rid. That's awesome. I really appreciate that. And let's highlight the comment there as well. So we got Kill the Justice League going to be the first game to sell 1 trillion copies. Um, we'll see.
I'd be very
Um,
surprised if they even break even, to be honest. I ain't
yeah,
gonna lie.
it could be a flop. Um, how am I least how am I least favorite
Alkine, we are
British
literally
people?
the only British people you know, bro, right? Because you don't go
Yeah.
outside.
That's
Okay.
true. Very true. I like his PFP that he's got going there with this with the new suit though. That's pretty cool. Um, so where were we? Yeah. So Iron Man. Yeah, as I say, I was watching your video. 100% agree with what you were saying there about it being like sort of semi-open world with the hub system. They could even go like into space. The space, like he has a space suit. There's loads of stuff. I really liked what you were saying as well about how you could have different suits for different situations. So
Yeah.
you could have like a space suit, a suit to deal with like volcanic eruptions and all kinds of stuff. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I think that so I know that Slipshock made this point in his video, but he was talking about how like, there could even be bonus objectives to use specific suits in situations, because I think one of the things that would annoy people is if they're forced to use specific outfits in specific situations. But I think
yeah,
if
people
you
do like the cosmetics and customization and stuff.
Yeah, but I think if there's like an extra little goodie, like maybe an XP boost or something like that, if you use the specific suit in that situation, then that could be beneficial.
It is a good idea though, because like you could even have like a stealth mission where he has to wear like a stealth suit and you have to like dodge radar and like dodge jets that are chasing you and stuff. There's loads of stuff you could do with that idea. um and make like scripted, even if you did it as like a scripted moment. But with things like that you wouldn't necessarily have to change the suit. Like the player themselves could still wear the cosmetic they want, but you could still have a section where he uses stealth tech. um
Yeah.
you can kind of balance it that way.
We
um
know there's going to be a load of suits because, as we saw with the A game, it seems like Iron Man is quite an easy character. Well, not easy, but like an easier character to build costumes for and stuff, because he's not
yeah,
a person. Well, I mean, he is obviously a person, but the armor itself is a lot easier to
yeah, there's no like
model because
facial
there's no.
animations
Yeah,
and
exactly.
all that kind of stuff. Yeah, definitely. I think he probably got the most suits in the A game, out of any other character, and that does make sense as being the reason why that you don't have to do those extra little bits and pieces. Although saying that, he did get some suits which actually showed off his face, like the AI suit and there
Yeah,
was
but they didn't
the
actually do anything with the face.
yeah,
Like
that's
there wasn't
true.
actually any animations there, so it kind of like it helps your point about them not having to worry about face animations and stuff anyway. So
Yeah. Do you think it's going to be similar in terms of like the actual gameplay to like your standard third person third person like combat game? Do you think they're going to do anything a little bit unique with it? You know,
So
um,
yeah, that's an interesting thing for me, right? Because like it's kind of Iron Man is obviously a really cool character to watch in films and like to see in animated stuff and comics and all that. But like
yeah.
with games, like he wasn't the most fun to play in Avengers
Hmm.
out of any
He
out
did
of
a
the
pretty good
rest.
job with his combat though
It
overall, I would say.
Yeah, I agree, but like I think that you know sort of thinking about the Iron Man movie games, thinking about sort of Avengers and stuff like that, it's kind of difficult for me to like think of how you could make it like really exciting, because a
Yeah.
lot of Iron Man is flying around just shooting with your stuff.
Hmm.
And I think that people, there's obviously a window life to that. You could do melee. Obviously, you can have melee combat, but I feel like with it being open world, a lot of people are just going to want to just fly up and like
Yeah.
just take people out from afar. So there has to be almost like a way to force people into these combat scenarios. Otherwise, people are just going to fly to the corner of the area and just shoot from afar.
Yeah. See, I'm wondering if like there's going to be almost, excuse me, an element of like suit customization. So that's joined the chat. Hello, how you doing? Tea time. Yeah, pretty much in the UK it is around tea time.
Yeah, I'm getting a
um,
kebab after this. I haven't eaten all day. I've been hibernating.
range damage OP again. I don't know. It just depends how they're going to play it. I mean, um, I think it'd be pretty cool actually if they start the game where you have like the Mark One or like very basic suit, and you can actually build up your own Iron Man suit. So throughout the game, you can develop new parts and customize it. I know in the Dead Space games, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone in chat who's played them or yourself, Star, if you've played Dead Space, but throughout the game, you find like new weapons and new like parts that you can kind of customize and build into different like varieties and variations and stuff. So I think it'd be kind of cool to follow that kind of idea where you can unlock lasers, you can unlock different blasters and all kinds of stuff and customize your play style. But the way you customize your play style is actually represented on the suit. So you could have different arc reactors, you could have different like shoulder cannons and things like that. And that way, the cosmetics could maybe be, if you want to wear like a suit from a film, for example, it might be like a transmog skin that you can apply over
Hmm.
yours, but when you're not wearing that, you have your own customized Iron Man suit. I think that'd be pretty cool.
I wonder, like, in with the story wise, where they're gonna put this Iron Man, because I always sort of thought that, like, see, Avengers did it right, because we do have to bring that game up with this because that is
Yeah,
the last
it's
time we got to
unavoidable.
play Iron Man. It's very, but I think they did a good job in what they did with Iron Man because he's poor. Obviously, in this, well,
Mm,
poor for Tony
ish.
Stark anyway.
Yeah,
Like the idea of him, so if that was exclusively an Iron Man game, I could buy the idea of him looking in chests and picking up stuff because he doesn't have that tech just with him, like
yeah,
we saw the makeshift thing that he used in the mansion level and stuff like that.
that
So
was
I
a good.
think I
That was a
think
good mission. I like
it
that
was, it
mission.
was, it
It
was.
was cool.
They had quality missions in the campaign, but I think that but if you sort of open the game and he's he's this one and he's got like billions of dollars worth of tech and everything else, I don't see why would we upgrade? Do you see what I'm saying? Like the upgrades are
Yeah,
done. Like so unless you resort Tony to like poor guy after like I don't know his company gets taken over or something, I'm struggling to think of the idea of how you can build up a character that's already got everything.
I think the way they would do that is it has to be dependent on the player's choice of how they want to play. So it could be that there's benefits like pros and cons to various types of gameplay. Like if you want to get up close and personal, you could focus your suit or your upgrades into being more based around like taking damage. But if you want to be really like how Khan was saying in the comments, if you want to have a ranged combat build, you could be like a glass cannon and you could do it that way. And then there's a variety in how you choose to play. So it could be like that, but then it could also be a case of, like you were saying, like you find things throughout the game that kind of just slowly level you up. But I do think with Iron Man, it's a golden opportunity to make something where the player has a lot of input in how the actual combat and gameplay turns out because the nature of his suit is customizable. He develops his own weapons, his own technology. So
Mm.
having an upgrade path where you can choose how you want your Iron Man suit or abilities to work, I think is the best way to do that, in my opinion. Um,
If we're being realistic, given the state that the way game not state, but given the way games have been coming out recently, he's probably going to have gear. He's going to have a
yeah,
little
I
menu
hope
like
not.
the Hogwarts Legacy, like the Assassin's Creed ones,
Yeah,
and you get that from doing. missions and stuff, or picking stuff off the ground. That's probably gonna be how this ends up
Probably.
working,
I
and
mean,
it's a shame because, like you said, like he's a character with a ton of customization, and it probably will go for that because of
yeah,
it's right there. But I think it's going to be sort of like similar to, if I'm being honest, if I'm just looking at this from sort of like a negative point of view, sort of, is like Mirage with their little costumes, situation transmog where they've got like the outfit and then the costume. Do you see what I'm saying? Like
yeah. Yeah, definitely. I
they'll
just
probably be
think
like
I
that.
really hope they don't go down like the gear slash like collecting upgrades in missions thing. I think kind of like what Alkheim said there is like Tony usually upgrades his suits after he gets his ass beat. So I think it'd be quite cool if, like you said, if you combine that idea that you mentioned of having like a hub where you excuse me, you go out from the hub and explore different regions every time you return back to the hub, which could be Avengers Tower, it could be Stark Tower, it could be his mansion, whatever. Every time you go back there after exploring an area, you can sit down at your desk and kind of like and think like, wow, in that last mission I really wish I could have gone faster. I'm going to upgrade my thrusters, and like, you'll get extra speed. But if you put power into the speed, it might like divert from your repulsors, so you have weaker attacks, things like that.
Yeah, stuff like that sounds awesome, man. And like, I would
That'd
love
be
it. I would
cool.
love it if that's what they ended up going for, because like, I also like the idea of going back to the hub to do that. Because like, obviously Tony's, he's a very smart guy, but like the thought of him just doing that on the fly seems a little bit like,
Yeah, well,
sort of
it was pretty
ridiculous.
cool in I don't know if you ever played the first Iron Man movie Tired game.
I did when it came out, so I was quite young when it come
Yeah.
out. I was,
It's aged like obviously not like amazingly well, but one of the really cool ideas they had in that game is that you could actually divert power to different parts of the suit on the fly. So if you needed to like get across the map really quickly, you could divert the power into the thrusters, but it made your attacks and your armor weaker, but you went faster.
oh,
And it was a really sick idea actually for the way they did it. And you had to
I
manage how you like kind of did that. So if you had to stop and get into a fight, you'd have to quickly use the D-pad to divert power into your armor or attacks and stuff. It was cool.
Oh, that sounds crazy. I didn't know. I didn't remember that. The only thing I remember, my memory of the first Iron Man game, is thinking to myself when I saw the screenshots of how awesome the game looked in graphics. Like back when I was like a kid, I thought that the graphics of that game were
Yeah.
nuts.
No, at the
Like,
time it was pretty good as far as movie tie-in games go. And like if you go back and look at some of the screenshots, like the obviously the screenshots for marketing are touched up a little bit, but like it looks decent. Like the character model,
yeah.
especially like all the pieces moved. So like if he moved his shoulder flaps or like his like drag flaps on his suit, they actually moved individually. And this was on like the Xbox 360, so at the time it was like pretty mind blowing. Um,
Iron Man 2 was awful though. I remember that game. I didn't like that one.
yeah, they didn't try as hard on that one, unfortunately. Any kind of like closing thoughts on Iron Man that you want to mention before we go on to the next one?
I think that the supporting cast is going to be really fun. I think that
Mm,
we're going to get, a lot of cool cameos, Easter eggs, and stuff like that. Because if it does end up being so that you can go literally anywhere around the world, I think it'd be really cool if Tony can comment on things as he goes past them. So one of the things Iron Man VR did quite well, is that when he's sort of flying past like Oscorp, for example, right?
yeah.
He makes like a reference to, he actually makes a reference to Spider-Man PS4, but I don't think they're in the same universe.
No, I don't. Yeah,
But
I don't think so.
yeah, he mentions the devil's breath thing and
Okay.
all that. Like so I would love it if like in this game it's the same sort of thing and like he comments on stuff as we sort of recognize
Like
it, because
little
they're
Easter
gonna
eggs.
have
That'd be
Marvel
cool.
landmarks and all that. So it would be cool
Yeah, I mean they did
if we
that in
could see stuff
Spider-Man as
like
well.
that.
Like when you obviously you got like Avengers Tower and like when you took a picture of it, he was like, "Oh, they're on the East Coast in San Francisco," and it's like everyone was like, "Hold on a minute, like are they in the same universe? Like what's going on there?" That was obviously years ago at the time of Avengers, like wasn't even out yet. But I don't know if you remember, but um, obviously it had been confirmed at that point that Avengers was set in San Francisco, and
Yeah, I
I
remember. Yeah, because
yeah,
then the remastered came out, and everyone, because one person didn't hear that line of dialogue, they assumed that Insomniac took it out because Avengers bombed. And I was like,
Yeah.
guys, come on now,
No, that
Christ
was. I think
Almighty.
it was just the developers of Spider-Man being like, "Oh, we'll just do a little nod to the other Marvel game that's coming out," kind of thing. Which is, it's always nice to see. So it would be good if we get more of that in Iron Man, like you said. So moving on to the next one, which is the untitled Skydance game, but you do have some theories on the title, so I'll let you do your thing.
I would be flabbergasted if this isn't called Marvel's Flag of Our Fathers, right? Because or
Hmm.
Flags of Our Father. I think it's Flag of Our Fathers, but anyway. Um that so because literally in that story, Gabriel Jones is featured like heavily featured. There you go, Christ. Azuri, who is the Black Panther in this game, it's set in this time, which is the grandfather of T'Chaka, obviously T'Challa's dad. Um, and then the obviously Cap is heavily involved in it, and there's also there's a lot of stuff about the Wakandan spy network in that story as well. So I think
Yeah,
that they're going to
there's a
use a
lot of.
lot of that. There's a lot of close elements and stuff like that. So in that story, Gabriel Jones is kind of asked to go on a little sneaky mission in Wakanda while it's being invaded.
Right.
um and when he realizes like the culture around him, like, whoa, like this is beautiful, this advanced civilization for people who look like me, this is brilliant, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because obviously back then racism huge,
yeah,
unfortunately. I mean, still, still is,
still
but back
huge,
then, it was,
but like,
yeah,
yeah,
but it was less sort
worse.
of people try and hide it now, whereas
Mm,
back then it wasn't, So I can imagine that was quite big.
mm,
Cap obviously being still really talented, but still new. So
yeah,
so when it came to kind of the fight that they did have, I mean, Black Panther was just OP, man. Like, let me tell you, like, he was wrecking people. He literally, I can't remember what their names were, the villains. They weren't like big villains. They weren't like, you know what I mean? They were no
yeah.
names, pretty much, C lists. But Black Panther, like, just demolished pretty much all of them. Like, if Cap wasn't there, if Dora Milaje wasn't there, they would have been fine anyway. Like, he would have just taken them all out.
Soloed them.
Um, and I think
Quite.
I think I think that's going to probably be the same thing in this game because, like, you know with the when we saw in the little trailer, we saw that Cap Shield's got the gun there and stuff. That's probably going to be what his gameplay is. He's probably going to be more of a
Reliant
defensive
on.
character,
Yeah,
sort of a bit more of a ranged kind of character. Obviously, you can get up close and personal because people will be really angry if you can't do any melee with Cap, and I get it. But I think that a lot of his thing is going to be having the shield up,
yeah,
gun in hand, rushing into it, or staying from afar and stuff like that. Whereas Black Panther's going to be like really agile, really in your face, and I think that I think that's going to be the same thing. So Gabriel Jones is going to be playing like sort of similar to Cap, and I think that Nanali is going to
yeah,
play very similar to Black Panther as well. I think Outcome's right. I think it is going to be a linear game, um, as
yeah.
well.
So that,
Yeah,
in terms of like the closest hints we've got, the reason I highlighted that comment is because I just wanted to touch on that. Like the closest hints we've got to the gameplay or how the game is going to progress and be presented is that the main director of the game is Amy Hennig, who worked on Uncharted previously, was one of the main people behind the Uncharted trilogy. Um, and basically during like a press thing for this untitled game, she basically said, if you've played any of my previous games, wink wink, Uncharted, she couldn't actually say Uncharted probably for like, I don't know if it was like legal reasons or whatever, but she was like, if you've played my previous games, you'll have a really good idea of how this game is gonna play and how it's gonna, how it's gonna work. So I do think it's gonna be linear. They might have some open sections, kind of like Uncharted 4 did, maybe. Like especially with like like they have like set pieces and chases. I think it's going to be very set piece action heavy, and I think it is going to be very similar to Uncharted in terms of like how the combat works as well. I actually think the Uncharted melee combat is a little bit underrated. It's got that sort of like pow pow, like Indiana Jones ish, like over the top action adventure, like very visceral. Like every punch really feels like it's connecting in those games, and I think that's going to be pretty good for especially like Captain America and Black Panther. Um, so yeah, I do think it's basically going to be Uncharted with Captain America, Black Panther, and the other two, essentially. And I'm not complaining about that because I think that would be awesome.
It really is the other two, isn't it? I think that's one of the things that this
Yeah,
game's going to have to really
I hate
sell.
saying that, but
Because
like,
no, but you are like that is literally how people are going to look at this game. Like it is going to be so. Like if you, as a kid or whatever rating this game's going to be, you go into the store and you see the cover. You're not looking at Gabriel Jones and thinking I need to pick this game up now. You're
yeah.
looking at
I mean,
Captain
it's a
America.
good
You're looking at Black
opportunity to like
Panther.
highlight like how like he's a Howling Commando. He's a character in his own right, and like you said, he's part of the comic. So it is cool to give lesser known characters a bit more of a spotlight. But at the
I
same
think there's
time,
yeah, I think there's
people
gonna be a
want
really good story that comes out of this game, and that's kind of what that's sort of what I'm looking for because I have no doubt that the gameplay is probably going to be really fun. I think it's going to be a game that it doesn't take too long, doesn't ask you to sort of dedicate your life to it. I think it's going to be a nice, like sort of similar to what you guys have been saying about the linear stuff, and
yeah,
I think that, I think it's going to really focus heavily on the story. I like the thought of Gabriel Jones learning about Wakanda and being like, whoa, this is like, I can't believe it.
yeah,
Like this advanced civilization of people who look like me, while I'm over in Paris, this worn torn, unfortunately, place because of, the war and stuff. And I'm
yeah,
still getting dirty looks from, old pensioners and that, even though I'm wearing a uniform. This is crazy. Like, look at all the respect, that they all have and stuff like that. And I think Nanali's gonna almost be the opposite of that. I think she's gonna see sort of like, what what
yeah.
is happening
Why
over
does this
here?
place suck?
Yeah,
Like,
why does this place
basically,
suck so much? And I think that like Cap is gonna learn a lot from Black Panther. I think that his mind's going to be sort of open to these new kind of places and almost like this door just being open to like, yeah, you're not as hot shit as you might think you are,
yeah. And
because
as well because we see the scratches on the shield, so they're probably
yeah.
going to be a little bit of a fight at first as well when they first meet, which would be cool.
And ideally, I mean, listen. I love Cap, I do, but I wouldn't be against Black Panther just absolutely beating his ass, like just giving him real. Because the thing is, I think in this time, I mean, Cap's never been a cocky guy. Like he's always
No,
been, he's always been sort of. But I feel like what would be interesting is not like a jock, Steve Rogers, right? I'm never going to say that, but I wouldn't mind him being a little bit more cocksure of himself. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? Because he's literally the face of the war at this point, for America's side and stuff like that. Like he is Captain
he's
America.
not been
So
fully like tempered by experience as well. So
yeah,
like he's
exactly. So there's got to be a level of like, not arrogance, but kind of maybe ignorance. Maybe that's the right
yeah,
way of saying it because he's sort of unaware. So
yeah.
um I
I
think
do.
I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, no, definitely, I agree, and like I do think in terms of the gameplay, it's going to be very set piece heavy, very action adventure sort of heavy. I do think as well they're going to be obviously. I mean, at the end of the day, Gabriel Jones is not going to play like Captain America. Nanali's not going to play like Gabriel Jones. There's going to be some elements of the gameplay being different. So maybe one focuses more on stealth. We have had like stealth sections in the Uncharted games, so they could lean into it rather than being like. Whereas Nathan Drake, it was very much like you just have different parts of the story and you handle it in a different way. Maybe in this one, those different elements are by switching characters. So when you have a stealth section, it might be Nanali or Black Panther. And then when it comes more to like the combat side of things, you look at more like Captain America and Gabriel Jones. And I know, um, correct me if I'm wrong, but Gabriel Jones uses like a trumpet or something like that to like signal attacks and stuff. So they could do something with that. Pretty sure he's actually got it on him and on the cover art as well. You can see it on him. I don't know if they'll maybe do something with that, like he can cause
Yeah,
distractions or
I mean,
There's
that's a
loads.
fair point. I mean, there's also could be missions where like they're working together. So like you, if you play as Cap, it's just like like maybe a tutorial area or something. When the game first starts, there could
Yeah.
always be a thing of like you can signal to Gabriel Jones to do like a trumpet,
Excuse me.
and then Cap can go behind and knock someone out or something like that. I think there's going to be a lot of teamwork in the game as well.
Speaking of teamwork, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this one because I know how some people feel about single player games and like think every single game should be single player. But I personally was disappointed to find out that it wouldn't have any co-op. I think it would be really cool if like there were sections of the game or even a separate mode from the story. So, people who want the story to be single player, that's absolutely fine. But to have a separate section where you can play as Black Panther and Captain America or Gabriel and Denali or any mix of whatever, um, and actually like play online with a friend and team up that way. If you've got four characters, it kind of makes sense. It was a little bit disappointing for me, but I get it. They want to focus on the story and the narrative experience, and that's understandable. I literally think, as I've just said that, we've lost some people in the chat, like just dropped the viewers a little bit. So that is how unpopular that opinion is. And you know what? I get it. It's fair enough. I understand. People like the single player games. It's just I was a bit sad, but I'll live. I'll
I
sleep.
think that like so the reason I was really fine with the fact that this game was going to be single player is despite it obviously being four heroes and that kind of makes it does sort of seem like it's set up to be co-op but until you find out it's not. um if they were to do that, they should format the game like it takes two a way out. I agree. I think a way out is a good setup for that.
Yeah, A Way Out's
But
an awesome game.
the one of the things I will say though is that like there's probably story reasons for that, and I feel like the reason is because they're setting it up so that like you will appreciate the non-powered characters. You know what I mean? Because like
Yeah,
realistically,
that's
everyone
true.
is going to play every single mission as Captain America and Black Panther. Fair enough, I get it,
Yeah,
but there's obviously some deep story reasons for the other two, and I feel like, that there's definitely, a let them cook situation with that. And to be fair,
yeah,
to your credit, I understand like why not just have like another mode where maybe you can go through the missions bit in co-op, or like a later thing. I think that that's purely just it's easier to not add that because it might, there's not going to be
yeah. No, I
longevity
get
in
it.
that.
I
Like
do get it.
I
Like, I'm not I'm not saying like, oh, I'm not gonna play it because it doesn't have co. I'm definitely gonna play it, and I think it's gonna be awesome. It's
yeah.
just, me. I'm a big fan of like that kind of thing, and while Alkheim's kind of touched on the whole It Takes Two slash A Way Out, which are both really good games, and I had a lot of fun. I played them with my partner. Um, I think if they were gonna make a game that kind of has that format where teamwork is very central, I think Fantastic Four would be a really good opportunity to have a co-op experience because every
I think
character,
that one needs co-op, to be honest. I think Fantastic
yeah,
Four, there's no reason really why the Fantastic Four should ever be on their own or one of the members be on
exactly,
their
yeah.
own.
And it's like if you can play as one, like what you were saying about the way this Skydance game is set up is like at the end of the day, no matter what, people are going to want to play as Captain America and Black Panther. That's just the way it is. But with the Fantastic Four, it's like if I can't play as my
They're all
favorite,
pretty
it's like
cool.
they're
Like
all pretty cool. Like
they're
I
all
can still
brilliant.
play
Like yeah.
as someone who's got like really cool powers, so it doesn't really detriment
It's like pick one, the
co-op.
guy with super strength and who can literally pick up cars with his pinky finger, or the guy who can set himself on fire.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. It's like,
like
okay, fair enough. I can't, I'll take that. So, and
yeah.
they could definitely do some cool stuff with that. But I don't think we know that much more about the Skydance game currently, to be honest, unless you've got any kind of things you want to add on to that one. Um, the only
No,
thing actually
I think
before
you're
we move
right. Like
on, yeah, is it's quite rare for a game to directly adapt a comic story, especially a comic title. So I do agree that they're going to take a lot of inspiration from that comic run that you mentioned,
I
but
feel like that's why
but
we don't have a name yet, to be honest, because I feel like with it that there's no because it's kind of just all right. It's gonna happen, but just let us cook for ages.
Yeah.
Um, and
But
I
it's
think
just
that
unusual because usually when most comic book games that come out or like Marvel DC, they're like, "Oh, we're doing our own thing, like it's our own take. This is our own universe." It's quite rare that they'll like directly adapt like a comic run, if you know what I mean.
yeah, yeah.
Like
I
generally.
definitely think that they're going to take a lot of elements from that comic, but because the majority of it does happen in Wakanda, and it's clear that we are starting off in Paris, probably will go to Wakanda to be fair, but I can't imagine that like 100% of the game is happening over in Wakanda. So there's probably story elements they're going to take from that, and I think that's the reason they haven't just straight up said this is Marvel's flag of our fathers because while they're
Yeah.
cooking and before marketing stuff happens, people are just going to go read that comic and think that they know what the game's going to be about. And it'll be, if you like it, then cool. But if you don't, you're going to force yourself to not like the game before it's even got a chance. See
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
that's true. And it's only gonna be like, hardcore fans and like people who are very invested in the comics like yourself who would figure it out beforehand. Um, the general audience are probably not going to be aware of that comic
Exactly.
or
Yeah.
so yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But that about wraps up what we know of the Skydance game so far. So on to the next one, which is EA Cliffhanger Studios Black
I'm
Panther.
really excited for this one. This is probably the one besides. I mean, I can't tier them because I would play them all. I'm gonna love them all, but I think this one specifically is probably gonna get the most hours out of me, out of the
Okay.
non-Spider-Man titles. But the only thing that scares me is Ryan Gosling, Black Panther.
Oh God, yeah. Okay, so for people who might not know, there was a rumor going around about a year ago from Jeff Grubb, if I'm saying that right. I think his name is. He's an
Yeah,
industry
yeah,
insider, and basically he said that you're not going to play as T'Challa in the game. Something's happened with T'Challa, whether it's he's passed away, died, or something like that, and you're actually going to play as your own created character who gets past the mantle of Black Panther. Um, I hate it. I hate that idea so much, and it's just it sucks because we've already, obviously it was extremely sad that we lost Chadwick Boseman, and we've already lost that version of T'Challa because of his passing and the way they've moved on with that. And then it just feels very weird to me to then take T'Challa out of other media and not let the character kind of shine. And I don't know if that's deliberate or they just want to do something different with this game, but I really, really hope that's not the case. I hope it is just T'Challa. But yeah,
one
what
of
are
the
your
things
thoughts
that
on
I
that?
say to people when like Jeff Grubb is kind of brought up, and I'm not saying he has no credibility, he absolutely does. But I remember when Marvel's Midnight Suns was getting rumored, and I've mentioned this loads of times, but he said that Midnight Suns would feature no Marvel characters. It would basically just be Shield agents, and it'd be
No.
XCOM.
Oh God,
Now
that would suck.
he couldn't have been more wrong.
Yeah,
Literally, could not have been more. There are more references in that game to the Marvel universe, and I think any other Marvel game outside of our Ultimate Alliance and that, where there's literally like tons of Marvel characters.
yeah,
Um, and so I'm hoping it's a similar situation there, where like this is just wrong, this bit. But
yeah.
I mean, when it
I
comes
hope
to the
so.
game, he's gotten everything else right. So, and the way they said it in the little article thingy.
Yeah, they were like, "Oh, the
Uh,
player gets the
it-
mantle," and it's like we
yeah,
want the
really,
player to
yeah.
experience the mantle, and it's like,
It's not the
mm,
it's not like experience T'Challa's rising as the Black
yeah.
Panther, or this
They
is how
didn't
you can
mention his
feel to
name at all.
be T'Challa, or yeah, I do think it is us now. I don't know if this is a hot take. It's probably not, but when we do make our characters, please don't let us be able to make a white character.
Yeah, I agree.
Black
Like it's got
Panther
to be a
is
yeah,
not a white man. He's
no,
not. He's just not. It's
yeah,
just not.
yeah.
And I
I think
know
the
that
only way
there's
they could kind
people.
of they could do that is like presets. So you have like a set of preset characters that you can choose from, and then it's not really customizable in a sense. It's more like you just choose like a preset, but it's just weird. Like, why even bother? Like, it just seems like such you really have to go out your way to just not let us play as T'Challa. You know what I
It
mean?
does
Like,
feel, it does feel very strange because, like, especially if he's T'Challa's dead in this game, or
yeah,
maybe he's not even around. Like, we just take his spot. Like, we are T'Chaka's son. Do you see what I'm saying?
yeah,
Instead, like, it's just
no,
really strange. Like,
it doesn't work for me.
because I mean, it's odd. I think that, because like Skydance, I get it because of the time frame. Like, T'Challa isn't even like a thought or to
Yeah,
exist at that
yeah,
time.
that
But
makes yeah in that time
in
period it makes sense.
yeah, in this game, there is really no reason to not have T'Challa in it. Besides, oh well, the MCU doesn't, so let's just
Yeah,
do
that's what
this
I
and
mean.
like
Like, it's too much
avoid.
MCU synergy. Um,
Which is weird because the MCU also sort of did like a middle of the ground thing of like, right, T'Challa's dead, but T'Challa's not dead. Here comes this kid,
yeah,
like
yeah,
which by the way, like if they actually are letting the kid grow up and then he actually gets into the role, or they just replace him and someone who's older because time travel shenanigans, and that's just
yeah.
T'Challa now. Like, what was the point? I think you should have just recasted and just been done with it. But that's just me. Anyway,
No, yeah.
um,
There's a lot of discourse on that,
yeah.
but
But
but it,
and when it comes to this, I just don't really get it.
I don't get it. It's weird. So I've just pulled up the page for the introduction of Cliffhanger Games because it's actually a brand new studio. So these guys have come together to work on this game. Prior to that, so you've got uh, the lead developer Kevin Stevens from Monolith, and then they've brought together developers from Middle Earth: Shadow of Mordor, Halo Infinite, God of War, and Call of Duty. So there's a big mixture of games and genres there. The only ones I can really kind of see them pulling experience from really is Shadow of Mordor and God of War, in terms of like combat and traversal and things like that. It's an interesting one. I mean, presumably it's going to be a third person action adventure. I think it's confirmed to be open world because they said you can explore like all of
Yeah,
Wakanda is
yeah, it
going to
is,
be
yeah.
available. Um, so it's going to be interesting. So it says Wakanda is a rich superhero sandbox, and our mission is to develop an epic world for players who love Black Panther and want to explore the world of Wakanda as much as we do. So it seems like pretty much all of Wakanda is going to be the whole open world map, and this makes a lot more sense. So what we were saying with Iron Man before was obviously it doesn't make sense for him to be tied to one particular location, but with Black Panther having the whole of Wakanda to explore, it makes a lot more sense to make that one super dense, super rich environment. So, how do you think the game's going to play? What would you like to see personally? I know you said you're excited for this one. So, what are your kind of hopes and dreams for the gameplay?
I think it's going to be really cute when we get to ride on big like rhinoceroses to get to like different locations in Wakanda and stuff like that. I really am like that. The creator character is weird, but the thought of being able to explore Wakanda,
Yeah,
as long as it isn't just, kind of like how Avengers was, where it was like, yes, it's Wakanda, but it's actually just a jungle. You wouldn't know it's
yeah,
Wakanda, like unless someone told you it is. Um, so, but as long as they've got that, then I think it's gonna be absolutely beautiful. I really am looking forward to just traveling through Wakanda. It's kind of a dream come true, really, like for just in superhero things in general, because Wakanda's always, whether it's in the movies, cartoons, comics, whatever, always looked at as just this beautiful environment because it's so advanced, But
yeah,
there's also that culture within where it's like it's not all just futuristic technology stuff. There are sort of still sandy areas where people are just, having fun. Like it's like a normal African sort of
yeah.
city,
Like in the
if you see what I'm
films, they've got
saying.
like
Like,
the rivers, they've got the mountain section.
hmm
They've got like all these different kind of biomes that kind of like converge on each other. And that's why they've got the different clans which kind of represent, a different area, like the river tribe, the mountain tribe, um, and so on. And I think that's pretty cool because you'll get a lot of diversity in the geography of the map, even though it's one location, and it's probably going to be
yeah,
massive because like Wakanda's like obviously not a city; it's like it's a whole country. So if they wanted to, they could make it as big as like the Ghost Recon map, like Bolivia, absolutely enormous. Um, and there's plenty to explore. I personally think like having a slightly smaller but more dense map is better, but they could go balls to the wall with it, especially with it being, current gen exclusive. They can really push it. I didn't even, do you know what? Until you mentioned it just now, I didn't even consider like vehicles or like
No,
mounts
see,
and things like
that's what I
that.
was saying. Like when you mentioned like, is it open world? I was thinking about this actually. I was like, wait a minute, Black Panther doesn't really. He's not known for traversal. You know, he doesn't fly. He doesn't. You know, he doesn't
Yeah,
swing. He doesn't. You know, he's not known to like be on motorcycles or whatever. But I would imagine that there'd probably be mounts, like animal mounts,
yeah, that would be awesome. And like, not only that, you could have like the flying, like they've got like ships and
the little
technology in
jet
Wakanda,
stuff. Yeah,
like the
yeah, yeah.
jets, and
That's true.
that'd be pretty cool. So even a fast travel mechanic could be like, like the ship just pulls up above you, you just jump in, and then it drops you off somewhere else. So there could
Mm.
be some pretty cool stuff like that. Do you think there's gonna be anything outside of Wakanda? Like he does any missions, like going off to do something else, or do you think it's just gonna stick to Wakanda?
I think it would just be Wakanda. I think it.
Mm,
I think that they want to focus exclusively on that rich environment, and I am curious who the villain is going to be, you know, like the bads,
yeah,
because realist because it always seems to me that Wakanda has this thing, or at least Black Panther, where like the villains are always outside trying to come in, and I can't
yeah,
I mean Wakanda could get invaded, you know, sort of like a Ghost of Tsushima style, where it's like now all of a sudden there's just a bunch of enemies everywhere, but like
that'd be cool.
I feel like
Something
I
from
don't know.
within would be like a civil war almost kind of deal.
Maybe, yeah, maybe because I'm trying to sort of consider like when Wakanda gets invaded, it's going to be a war all the time, right? It's not going to
Yeah,
be just like they've taken over now we're scared and everything. It's going to be literally all Dora Milaje, everyone else, Black Panther. It's just going to be a fight instantly, you know. So it kind of disrupts that idea of like, you know, why is Black Panther going to like the mountains when people are trying to get into Burnham Zana. You know what I mean? Like it
yeah.
doesn't make sense. So
The interesting
I'm
thing
not
as
sure.
well for me is going to be like, how are they going to handle like open world activities? Because like, I can't imagine there being much crime in Wakanda because they've got pretty much everything sorted. They've got all this amazing technology. There's basically, I can't imagine there's any poverty there. Um, and as most people know, poverty generally drives crime. So like in New York as Spider-Man, it makes sense because there's crime, there's poverty, there's all these like certain things happening. But in Wakanda, it's like I can't really see random crimes making that much sense from like a world standpoint. There's got to be some kind of other activity that they'll bring in. So whether
There
that's
could be
from
some like specific incident situations though. Like maybe someone's like
yeah,
in the jungle area and a lion's about to kill him, so you gotta like you jump in the way, you know what I mean, and just
yeah,
beat up the lion or something. You know what I mean?
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like or you know, someone's like in an awkward situation where they're like about to fall off a cliff, so you got a parkour up there to help them out and stuff like that. I
yeah.
think it's just gonna be sort of people in like troubling
It could even be
situations.
also as well like resolving like tribal disputes because even though I can't imagine there'll be like crime as such, there probably would be like two different tribes that are like
Infighting, yeah.
infighting and like they're getting at each other's throats and or arguing over like but like borderlines and things like that because Wakanda, as we said, is like so diverse within itself, that there's definitely things they could do with that for like side missions. But it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. Um,
I would love to see as well, like rituals across the map, sort of similar to the Hogwarts Legacy Merlin thingies. I don't know if
the
you're familiar.
well, I've played Hogwarts Legacy, but
So the you know, you could do like little rituals and stuff like that to the different, you know, Black Panther gods and stuff like
oh
that.
yeah, 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 yeah,
And you
yeah,
know, after you do like a certain amount, maybe you get like just a bit of XP. Maybe you get, you know, a little extra bonus. Maybe you go unlock a suit when you do it all in a specific area or
yeah.
something like that. I think that'd be
They
really
could
fun.
even they could do like they could do challenges as well. Like someone challenges you for the mantle. Like the way that in the movie they've got like the battle.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
and
duel.
they could be like really difficult fights. Like you have to be
Yeah,
like
like
actually
bosses.
decent. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Other than that, I don't think we know a great deal about, as is the case with quite a lot of these games because they get announced so early now. I don't think we know a massive amount about the rest of the game, other than that it's open world, potentially player created character. Um, so yeah, unless you've got anything else, I'm happy to move on to the next one.
No, I think that's pretty much it when it comes to stuff that we know. Again, I'm hoping that the create a character thing doesn't
Yeah,
happen. I hope that it's just T'Challa, because this is the first Black Panther only game we've ever had, and the
yeah,
thought of like it not being T'Challa, or you know what, at least a Black Panther, an
yeah. Like
actual Black
Shuri, like
Panther,
even Shuri would make
yeah,
sense.
you know, or
Um,
or not even those two. Like even if it's an old version of Wakanda and it's their dad, or it's
yeah,
Azuri again, or it's even before that, like at least have a Black Panther.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
that
it is it
and
is weird. I hope even if it was something that was planned early in development, there's been enough backlash already for them to scrap that idea. But it depends how far they are already into development, whether they can scrap it realistically, or whether whether it's viable for them to do that. But
I
it
do
just
trust that they're going to cook though, because there does seem to be a lot of like culture on the team from the devs that I've seen. They're all sort of. It does seem to be like they're
yeah,
going to know what they're talking about when it comes to
yeah.
this. The stuff. So I think that's good. Like it's not a Black Panther game with a dev team full of white people.
Yeah,
Which is a bit like
which
shit.
yeah. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. We'll see. I guess it's just a wait and see situation until we know more. Actually, one last thing that I can kind of we can talk about with the Black Panther game is obviously it's being produced by EA, marketed by EA. Obviously, it's two different development teams. So Iron Man is Motive and Black Panther is Cliffhanger. But with them both being under the same publisher, do you think there's any chance that we'll see some crossover or maybe set in the same universe? I know you mentioned earlier with Iron Man about like Easter eggs and stuff, but do you think they could take that a bit further with these two games with them being the same publisher?
I think it's possible. I think that the thing is, because there's a good potential that Iron Man doesn't even know that Wakanda exists. Like maybe they haven't sort of opened their borders yet, or not borders, but like they haven't sort of opened themselves to the world
Yeah,
like we've seen yet. There's a good chance that it could be literally in the same world, but because they're quite literally almost in two different worlds, because Wakanda's sort of treated as like its own planet sometimes. It could be
yeah,
the case of like it is, but it's not. Like there's probably not going to be any references to it, but like the devs might just say, yeah, yeah, it is the same. Why not? Because it sort of
yeah,
sells a little bit more of a connected world thing. It gets people more excited.
yeah. I mean, as we saw with the A game and Guardians of the Galaxy, they had the same publisher, but there was no cross connectivity there. Although I do suspect that that was not always the case. I maintain the belief that the A game and Guardians were at one point planned to be like a bit more of a cohesive world, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I
I,
guess
I
we'll
do
never
like the
know.
thought of like this still being kind of like how you would say what if is in the MCU, even though it's not in 19999999999. Like but you could sort of say the same here. Like when the Guardians are going through, I don't know I don't know what it's called, but the thing where you can see in different universes and stuff and all
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
and you
yeah,
see Spider Man and the Avengers. There is no way that they didn't have those two specific IPs out of like just pulling it out of a hat. There's a Spider
yeah,
Man game and there's an Avengers game.
yeah. Concurrently,
That was
yeah,
clearly the Insomniac Spider-Man, and those were clearly the CD Avengers. I think
yeah.
that so
Even if it was
it's
just an Easter
obviously.
egg or nod, it was definitely in reference to those. 100% agree. But I do think that at one point the Guardians game and the Avengers game were meant to maybe even cross over in the future at some point if all had gone well, in an alternate universe where Avengers like just absolutely took off and did really well and was supported and stuff, and then Guardians obviously did do well, quite well. I do think we would have seen like a bit more of a maybe like a crossover DLC or maybe even a sequel where they're all in it, something like that.
And the only crossover we got was nameplates.
Yeah, Switch, sucks. So moving on to the next game, which is probably the one we know least about, maybe, other than some rumors, is Insomniac's Wolverine. Um,
Oh man.
yeah, actually, it's not the
We've
game
said
we
we've
know
said
least
we've said
about
that
because
pretty much about every game because they all get like you mentioned earlier, they
yeah,
all just get
that's
revealed like
true.
100 years before they're even ready.
Yeah, I probably did say that about the other three. um, but it does feel like that. Like the games get announced so early these days. I mean, Wolverine was announced at the same time as Marvel Spider-Man 2, and Marvel Spider-Man 2 is about to come out this year.
2 years
God
later though,
knows
after the announcement, like Christ
exactly. So
almighty.
God knows when Wolverine's going to come out. I assume it's going to be 2024. Um, but what do you think in terms of open world, linear? Any ideas on what type of game it's going to be?
I don't think it'll be open world. I think with this one they're gonna go linear with it. I think it's gonna be sort of set missions and stuff like that. I think that it is just gonna be, nice linear story path, sort of similar to how we think the Skydance is gonna be. I think the
Yeah,
combat is gonna be stupid good though. Like I literally
yeah.
I have such high hopes that it's gonna be like X-Men
I,
Origins Wolverine, the
oh, that game
game
was so
dialed
good.
up to 11.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's been 100% confirmed by Insomniac. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I know Alkheim's very active in the chat, so he might know this. Um, but I don't think it's been 100% confirmed to be like 18 rated game. But I think there's been a lot of speculation and rumors that it will be. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't see how it can't be. Like, how can you have a Wolverine game that's like no gore, no blood, and
Well, we kind of know that they're already going to go for that because in the initial reveal trailer, there's blood, there's dead bodies everywhere. He's got blood on
yeah,
his hands when he pops the claws. Like, there's a guy going up to him looking like he's about to like try and stab him. Like, there is the, and also not even just that, but like with the combat alone, like you can't have Wolverine slashing his claws into people and not a drop of blood hits the floor like that.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
what are
mean,
they? What are
like
these
obviously
guys made out?
Wolverine.
Unless it's robots. Unless they're robots,
Yeah.
which would
Oh
be
God, I hope
lame.
not. I've had enough robots for a lifetime with Avengers, but um, I mean, it's not impossible because we have had Wolverine show up in other games like Ultimate Alliance and the X Men, like the early X Men games on PS2 and stuff. Like it's doable, but it looks silly now. Like you could get away with it back then because the graphics were obviously like very cartoony in those games to an extent. And but with this, I assume they're going to be going with a very similar, almost photorealistic style as Spider-Man, especially if these are set in the same universe as well. And I just don't see how you can do that and not make it realistic in terms of like gore. He's going to
I
slash someone and they just don't bleed. It just looks silly.
I believe this game has been confirmed to be set in the same world, even if it's even that
Yeah,
like it was a reference to it in the bar of the Earth number. And also they did mention like the Spider-Man and Wolverine universe in the PlayStation blog
right.
when those both got initially thing. They haven't straight up said these are in the same universe, but they might as
Yeah,
well have
but there's
done.
stuff to go on
Yeah. And
that it is.
and I mean, mate, that is so exciting because I love the fact that they've gone for two of the more so before the MCU, in my opinion, the big three was Spider-Man, Wolverine, and the Hulk.
Yeah,
When it comes to popularity, I think that those three absolutely just steamrolled. Um, and the fact that Insomniac are saying, okay, you know what? Let's just go for two of the big guys. Let's just it's Spider-Man and then Wolverine, and that's really exciting. I don't know if it will lead to an X-Men game somewhere down the road. I don't know if I want it to. I know I'm not that I don't want an X-Men game, but I would kind of be happy with them just always focusing on like singular characters because I don't want them to sort of like try and do a co-op game and then suddenly it's like, damn, we're not actually good at co-op games. You know what I mean? And
Well,
then people just lose stock in them.
I I mean, they've done Sunset Overdrive before, which had co-op, and they didn't have any problems with that, as far as I'm aware. They have experience with co-op games, and Sunset Overdrive is open world as well. So I
Oh, I
don't
wasn't
think that.
aware.
Yeah, that was an Xbox. I don't know if, like, how much you know about it, but it was an Xbox exclusive. A lot of the traversal mechanics from Sunset Overdrive are directly transferred into Spider-Man. Like the way you zip around corners and the wall run, it's literally like if you watch it side by side, it's Spider-Man. Literally, that's where they've pulled it from. Um, so they've done it before where they've had a co-op focused like open world game. So I wouldn't put it past them to try that again. And they also had a job listing a while ago for a multiplayer project. Now, I don't know if that's going to be obviously I'm sure you're aware recently it was confirmed that they are working on another game alongside
Yeah, yeah,
Spider-Man
yeah,
and
that was
Wolverine.
right. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I
And
wonder if that is the multiplayer game or
see,
that's like a
this is the
Venom
thing. It's not.
spin-off
It's
or
not.
something.
It's not clarified right now whether this is like another solo game as well as the multiplayer game, or if these two are one and the same. So that's going to be very interesting to see. Um, and yeah, I mean, we'll touch on that in a minute because the next section we will be talking about whether or not we think the mystery Insomniac game is going to be Marvel or something else.
Hmm.
But back to Wolverine. I is so the bar. I've heard speculation that the bar from the trailer, like the pub bar, is in Madripoor, and that's where the game's actually set. I don't know if you have any
I've
thoughts
heard
on
the
that.
same. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think it makes sense. I think it's sort of similar to what I was saying about the Black Panther and Iron Man game. Is that yes, they are set in the same world, but like if Wolverine is in New York, say right, and he's butchering people, then there's no way that Spider Man doesn't turn up and be like, "Brother, what are you doing?" Like
yeah,
this is craziness, you know. So it makes sense that like there are other heroes or characters, but they're just not there. It's sort of the same problem as the solo Venom game that I want, right? Is that
yeah,
Venom kills people, right? That's his like oh, criminals as a lethal protector. So he
yeah,
can't do that with Spider-Man around. Spider-Man's not going to let that happen. So you need to move him away if you're going to do that. And it's the same with Wolverine. Like, you know, there's going to be a lot of backlash if that happens. It's one of the
yeah,
reasons I can't see Spider-Man and Wolverine ever having a game together with Insomniac because then you have wildly, wildly like conflicting situations there.
yeah. The only way they'd be able to do that is, like you said before, it would have to be against like robots. So
Yeah,
there's no conflict of interest in terms of like not killing people, basically. Um,
exactly. That's right. Yeah, because otherwise they're just gonna fight all the time. Like, or
yeah,
you know, if it's like you could do it against like monsters and stuff like that, but that
yeah.
seems far fetched for this universe.
It is pretty grounded. Well, I mean, say that you've got like Hammerhead being a giant robot, so it's like it's not that
Yeah,
grounded.
that was so stupid.
But
That, but
yeah,
I
but
played that
yeah, that's
DLC not too long ago, man, and I still think it's atrocious.
it's so weird because like they were going down this route of it being like all about like the mafia and the crime bosses, and it was kind of like had this whole vibe to it, and then they just went, yeah, never mind, it's just about giant robot, and it's like what? Like I was kind of enjoying the whole vibe that they had early on, where it was mafia like crime family orientated.
I
Um,
think them was like putting Yuri as like a side mission was really disrespectful to her like huge arc
yeah,
in the DLC, which it just blew my mind. And it's like, yeah, by the way, the ending is like you're on this boat that was actually invisible by Silver Sable, and you have to like burn Hammerhead's head even as a robot, and it's just a bit like,
Whoever was like the main person behind that DLC needs to just not touch the Insomniac games again. I'm sorry. I know that's harsh. That sounds harsh, but please just stay away. Focus on something else. Like it was bad. They like I actually like I saw a Twitter post like um and it was like we need to we didn't let we let Insomniac off too easy with this. and,
You're
and it's
right.
like
You're
it's
right.
true.
Like I think like considering the amount of flack games get these days, I'm shocked that Insomniac got away with that. And I think that like so it just I don't I don't know like and the enemies with the miniguns as well were so annoying because they don't react to your hits. They just don't, and like there's no set system on how to beat them. So what you have to do is you just have to basically try and punch them until they either get knocked out or you get two finisher bars so you can just finish them off straight away. It's just weird.
Yeah, it was weird. It felt like the B team made that DLC, and I know that again. I know that sounds kind of mean, but it just wasn't up to standard for the rest of the game,
You
unfortunately.
can tell that Intihar and that squad went on to Spider-Man 2 when they were cooking the
Yeah,
DLC. Like,
yeah, that's fair to say. But back to Wolverine. So like, I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that. I think it's kind of like it's almost like a situation like what we talked about with Iron Man, where he's not generally tied down to one location. And I think it'll be interesting to see if they do something similar with, especially if it is a fully linear game, or maybe even like Ratchet and Clank, where in like linear in that sense, going from place to place. That you'll get to go to like X mansion, and then like maybe there'll be a mission where you've got to, what would be cool if they had a mission where you've got to hunt down Hulk, and that's how they introduce Hulk into the Insomniac
ah,
universe.
one of the things I was actually going to talk about when I brought up the three, the three musketeers, so to speak, of Marvel, was that I am shocked that no one has, the next gen stuff, as powerful as it apparently is, hasn't said, why have we not made a Hulk game yet? Like
Yeah,
with all the destruction and all the, with the chaos you can do with that, I am flabbergasted that no one hasn't thought, let's just put Hulk, almost like an ultimate destruction thing, just put him in the middle of a city and
I,
let him smash buildings
I
and
think it's
stuff.
because, right. So my thoughts on that are, I think it's because people kind of expect more from games now than just fun in it. And I know that sounds stupid, but like back in the day, you buy Ultimate Destruction, right, just to blow stuff up, and like be and it was to be fun. And the last game that I can think of that was really just focused on just trash and stuff was like maybe Prototype 2, and
Mm,
maybe Saints Row to some extent. But even those games have like a narrative, and you could do a really interesting narrative with the Hulk. I'm not saying you couldn't, but I just don't. Let's just say an Insomniac did make a Hulk game, right? It suffers from the same problem that you mentioned, that if you drop him into New York and just start trashing stuff, like why wouldn't Spider-Man come along? And if they want to make it make sense narratively, it's difficult to kind of just give you that. The only way they could do it is like it is just a game purely for fun, and there's no real like sort of consequences
mm.
behind it. It's a difficult game to do nowadays when people expect like a lot of depth when it comes to story. Um, it's not that it can't. I don't think it's that it can't be done. I think it's just people expect a different type of game nowadays than like just I want to buy it just to blow stuff up and knock stuff down, basically.
The stuff
But
you could do in Ultimate Destruction was wild. Like you could be
yeah,
a
it was crazy.
cannonball, you could literally grab missiles out of the the thing and throw it at the helicopters. Like it was so cool. And
Yeah,
I was terrible at the game because I was a kid when I was playing it. But like I just can't believe that not even Insomniac, like any dev team didn't
yeah, yeah.
go and beg Marvel for the Hulk thing. Cause I think that you would sell stupid copies just
I
with the
think
idea of a very like
with
explosive and destructive sort of game.
so hear me out, right? In the era of games that we live in now, and everything I just mentioned in terms of what people kind of expect and want from games, if you were going to do a Hulk game today, it would have to be a World War Hulk game, and it would be like God of War. So you would be playing as Hulk on like Sakaar. You would go through like gladiator tournaments. You'd be able to explore Sakaar, but as a slightly more in control Hulk that isn't just going to destroy everything.
Mm,
And there's
yeah,
like more of a narrative to it. You still get to go crazy at certain opportunities and like set pieces and stuff. But I think people would lean more to that now, in my opinion. Not that I wouldn't want a game like Ultimate Destruction. I think it's still a lot of fun. But I think if they were going to make a Hulk game, that's the avenue they would go down. They would take advantage of like the most well known excuse me, the most well-known narrative depth side of the Hulk. That's just my opinion. And plus, it's a cool opportunity to explore like a totally new location as well.
That's true, and also, if the Insomniac did make that, it also beats the like, well, why isn't Spider-Man going to get involved? You know, why isn't
Exactly.
Wolverine going to get involved? Because it's literally not on the planet.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Exactly. And I think they'd do something similar for Thor as well, like a God of War approach, where it's like, different realms and planets and stuff. Um, well, yeah, there's loads of stuff they could do, but yeah, Wolverine's an interesting one. I do think it's got to be an 18. I do think that it's got to be like various locations. I saw a lot of people speculating that like it would have like a motorbike mechanic, like that would be his vehicle, kind of like Days Gone. So like
possibly, yeah.
if it has like open world hubs, whenever you arrive at a location, he's got his motorbike with him, and that's how you travel around the hub, and you have to like maintain your bike. I actually think that'd be pretty cool, something a little bit different, and I really like the way that worked in Days Gone, the way your bike felt like a central like core part of the game. Um, and that would be interesting,
I
something
do,
like that.
yeah. I did like the idea of stopping for gas when you like being forced to in a zombie apocalypse because, like,
Yeah,
obviously, it was one of them like, oh mate, I don't actually want to stop, but I have to, or else I'm gonna be like, I might get trapped in a
yeah,
horde or something like that. I think in a Wolverine game where there is no like zombies or something like that, it might
yeah.
just be a bit of a nuisance to do that. So obviously,
Yeah.
I hope they don't
Well,
do
they
something
wouldn't have
like
to. I
that.
don't think they'd have to lean so much into like the diesel and petrol side of things, but like more just like your bike is like a like it's as much of a character as like Wolverine. Like it's always with you in the missions, and it's
Mm.
like your mini like home away from home kind of thing. You can go back to your bike and change your outfit and stuff like that. And if they did do like a mission in like the Canadian out like countryside, for example, where you do it like let's say you do have to hunt down Hulk, you could have a mission where you're just driving around looking for clues and like using your senses and Hulk is like stalking you as Wolverine and you've got to like drive around, try and find him and you can just come out of nowhere kind of thing. Because I know the Hulk versus Wolverine is like, everybody loves that kind of thing.
Well, actually,
Um
it's quite interesting. There was a reference to that in the bar. I can't remember
okay.
if it's like I think it's like a reference to the issue number and when it came out and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
I know
but
there's an animated show for it as well, like an animated
yeah, like it
thing for it.
literally everyone loves Wolverine versus the Hulk, and I get it. I mean, it's literally the shortest man versus this hulking monster, but like they're both sort of really strong in their own ways. Like
Yeah,
what
and
what
basically
happens
immortal.
when the irresistible force meets the immovable objects, right? Because Hulk literally can pick him up, rip him apart, and Wolverine will just crawl and put himself back together. Like, that's there's so much you can do with that. And I mean, to be fair, he might be like he I mean, Hulk might be the main,
The big bad.
not villain, because
Yeah,
he doesn't like a motive. Like he's not a villain, but like that could literally be what Wolverine's doing. And Madripoor's a great place because it's like there's a bunch of criminals that are there, and it's a good little place for Wolverine to stop off at. But I think that
yeah.
that could be what they're building towards. And Alcon's
It'd
right.
be
Yeah,
interesting
Wolverine's
if like
debut was him against the Hulk. So
yeah,
maybe that's
it
why
would
the number's there. To be fair, that it
maybe.
probably isn't just a reference to that,
It
but.
would be pretty cool if the whole game is like Bruce Banner is basically on the run from like the government because basically just become the Hulk in this universe, and the game is you kind of like following leads around the world to try and find him. And then like obviously that takes you on little side adventures in Madripoor and stuff, but the main thing you're doing is trying to find them, and then the end game like final thing could be like I know like it's in like a snowy forest where it's like now you've got to fight the Hulk and that's like the end boss kind of thing. That'd be pretty cool actually. That's a good story to they could expand on a little bit.
Because it
Um
also helps them out as well, because it's kind of like, you know, instead of having just these games where they have to set up like these new sort of like characters that fit specific characters. So, for example, right, they're probably never gonna just debut their version of Daredevil in a Spider-Man game, in my opinion. Like, I think that,
I don't know.
or
I don't know. I feel like that's a good way to do it. Like I mean, obviously with Miles Morales, he is like a Spider-Man, so it makes sense for him. But he was introduced in the first game and then developed into his own solo game. So and I know because he is a Spider-Man character, that makes a lot more sense. But they could do a Venom spin-off by introducing him in Spider-Man 2, and I do think it would be pretty cool if Daredevil showed up in the game to have a spin-off. I think that's
Well,
a cool way to do it.
so the reason I said that is because like obviously these are Spider-Man characters and they advance the Marvel Spider-Man story. So Venom's solo game will probably have some sort of ties to the overarching Marvel Spider-Man lore. So
Yeah,
so it kind of is in service of that. But like for example, I can't see Insomniac diverging from the path of like the what they're doing now
yeah,
to do a Daredevil game, so therefore they're probably not going to ever show him off because if they can't. Do you get what I'm saying? But like, if you do
yeah.
a
I get what you
Wolverine
mean. Like
game
the
and you
problem as
introduce
well
the
that they would
Hulk,
have is like
you don't have to
it,
do like okay Wolverine game, and now a couple of years later we can do a Hulk game. Okay, now these guys, now these they
yeah.
can do
I
whatever.
get
Like it
I get what
just
you're saying because like if they did, let's say they did bring in Daredevil into like Spider-Man 2 in a scene, like a courtroom scene or like a cameo basically, and they wanted to do that just for fun, then you're gonna get people going, well, now I want a Daredevil game, and it's like, and they're
exactly
like,
yeah. Like
well, we don't
you've
want to
sort
make a
of
Daredevil game, we just wanted to have him in
yeah.
the game. It's like, yeah, but we want a Daredevil game, and it's like, so yeah, I get what you're saying. It is a risk for them to bring in characters because people will then assume or want a game which Insomniac might not necessarily want to make. So
But I feel like with the
that's a
Hulk, you
good
can
point.
kind of get away with that as long as like the Hulk is like a really big part of the Wolverine game. Like if they have a fight, then you can do the power fantasy of the Hulk just by getting your shit rocked by
Yeah,
the Hulk.
yeah,
Whereas like if Daredevil just shows up as a cameo in the Spider-Man games, then you kind of well, like why is he not playable, or why can't I play as
yeah.
him, or when can I play as him, or whatever. Like I think it's kind of different.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I didn't really consider that, to be fair. So the mystery Insomniac game we've already kind of touched on, which could potentially be the multiplayer project, or it could be two separate projects. I know I recently made a video, like a short on this, saying that it could be a Venom game. I personally think it'd be awesome if it was a co-op Fantastic Four game. It could be a Daredevil game, could be anything. And most importantly, I know this is kind of a Marvel discussion, but might not be Marvel at all. Could be Ratchet and Clank, could be Resistance, could be Sunset Overdrive 2, for all we know. What do you think? Do you think they should stretch their legs a bit and move away from Marvel for a bit after this, or are you personally just hoping it's another Marvel project?
I'm always gonna hope it's a Marvel project because I love Marvel stuff, but I could understand people maybe like non-Marvel fans, or at least sort of like I'm a Marvel fan. I'd play the Spider-Man games, but I'm not like obsessed. Do you know what I mean? Like, so with
Yeah,
us, more Marvel games are better. That sounds great, but for some people, they might want Insomniac to kind of stretch their legs a little bit. I personally just hope that it's the Venom spin-off.
yeah, yeah.
That's
I
that's
can see
pretty
that
much
happening. To be honest, I do
and
think
like
there's a
I
strong
they know
possibility
that
that
that's
that's going
gonna
to happen.
sell a lot. That's why they've done the PS5 covers with the symbiote on it. That's why they've done the controller. That's why they've got the statue. That's why Hot Toys has already developed like symbiote Spider-Man,
Yeah,
and the Venom one's probably coming soon. They know that Spider-Man plus the symbiote sell stupid. So, a game exclusively
about
with
Venom.
Venom, I think it's gonna
Even if
do
it's
really
Miles
well.
Morales sized, would be fine by me
I think it will be.
personally.
Yeah, I think it would be. I think it's not going to
Yeah,
be a long thing, but I think that it would be in service of the main story and that character.
yeah, I agree, and I've seen some people speculating that like I know we've kind of touched on this in the other streams, but like the symbiote could be with Harry for the main portion of Spider-Man 2, and then towards the end, maybe Harry dies, and then Eddie Brock does get the symbiote, and then he goes into the spin-off as Lethal Protector. Because I think they can make Harry work as Venom in Spider-Man 2, but I don't think they could make Harry work as Venom in his own game. I think you have to have that iconic Eddie Brock relationship, in my opinion. Um, I just can't
Mm.
see people being as excited about a game where you play as Harry.
Yeah,
if you
you're
get what I
right. To
mean.
be honest, I think that like if you're gonna do a game, it kind of has to be Eddie. I think that
Yeah,
people aren't gonna be as interested if there's not like that kind of cute bromance, maybe sort of on the side of an actual relationship thing that Eddie and Venom
yeah,
do have. I mean, to be honest, I mean, it's interesting. In the comics, they talk about each other like really intimately. Like Eddie, there's panels out there where Eddie's talking about Venom being like his lover, and I'm not
Are
lying.
you
Like
are you
that's
setting yourself up for some of your shorts? Is this a plug like, oh, check out the Venom shorts I'm going to be
no
doing for these
man. I
comic panels?
I it's not a bad idea, but they are really like they're in love. So, I would love to see that in the game be recognized rather than kind of like in the Venom movies as well. Like, I
Yeah,
think that you can't really do that with a Harry. So, you're right. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, I think it'd be like, obviously people do really like Ratchet and Clank, and there's a lot of people out there that really want Resistance to come back, and I'd be happy for those people if it does turn out to be a non-Marvel related project, because at the end of the day we're eating pretty good. Like, we can't
Yeah.
complain, you know what I mean? Like, we're getting Spider-Man, we're getting Wolverine, and then outside of Insomniac we're getting all these other Marvel games. So it's like, we're sorted at the end of the day. If it's not a Marvel game, I'm not going to lose any sleep, but it would be cool if it is at the same time. Um, that about wraps up everything we've got to say on what we think about the Marvel games. Any kind of just things you want to talk about? Just general,
This
just a
is
little
really
chit chat.
random, but
Go
it
on.
is, it is a Marvel thing. I would just quickly check Twitter, and Killian Murphy said that when it comes to playing Doctor Doom in the MCU, following recent fan cast, he said
I
it's always
saw
about the
that. Yeah,
script.
I saw
Um,
that.
Let me tell you, I think he would be a fantastic Doom.
I do as well. I think in terms of his acting range, he'd pull it off no problem. I think it'd be like a walk in the park for him. But there is the whole, like, a lot of people want the Romani heritage of the character to be respected, and
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah,
yeah, and
I
it's
didn't
and
think
it
about that
and
actually.
yeah, to be honest, it's not something that would really, like, I only know bits. I don't, as you know, I'm not like super super into the comics. I just read about the comics, and I know about him being like having Romani heritage, but you know, not being like kind of immersed in that world, it wouldn't have occurred to me either. Like, the only reason I even know about it is because I've seen reactions on Twitter of people saying, well, we'd rather have a Romani actor take the role, which is perfectly fine, if people want that. It makes sense. But on the flip side, I think he could easily eat that role up, no problem. Um, just and it's one of those things where it's it's a case of like, are the studios gonna look at like Scarlet Witch, for example? They've clearly not had an issue with casting a non-Romani actress for Scarlet Witch, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
people who are upset by that, and that's understandable. But then at the same time, it's like, she's not bad in the role, like, at all. She's good in the role. Like, she's very popular. There's a lot of stan accounts out there, even though they're complete weirdos. But like, but she's popular in the role, and people like that version of the character. But I think it would be good to get an actor that kind of respects that, like, cultural background, if you like.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fair.
yeah, but again, it wouldn't have even occurred to me if I hadn't seen people talking about it on Twitter.
Well,
So
that's the crazy thing about Doom. Like, I didn't realize because after when you watch the initial Fantastic Four movies, obviously Doom is just kind of like he just blasts rockets out and stuff like that.
yeah,
That's not his thing at all. Like, it
yeah, he's
literally
got
took
like
me
loads of
years.
crazy
He
powers,
he
like
he wields
magic and
magic.
suits, and yeah.
Yeah, like he's literally because he got that from his mum.
Hmm.
But like the ability to do all that, and I had no clue until like a couple of years later. I was like, why did they not do that? Like
Yeah.
this guy's a sorcerer. Like he can,
Well, he
he can combat
combines
a
magic and
strange.
technology, doesn't he? So, like, he's obviously
Yeah,
got like his Doom bots and his suit, and and stuff, and he's like a genius level intellect, but at the same time, he combines that with magic, which is quite
That's why
interesting.
he's such a good big bad. Like you can put
Yeah,
Doom in anything and it wouldn't look stupid. Like he could. This is why people are sort of don't just want him to be the Fantastic Four villain in the MCU. He can take an entire saga on his own.
yeah.
Like
There's comic
he's a
panels where he's just one-shotted Thanos. Like
yeah.
he's insanely overpowered in some comic runs from what I've seen. So like,
Most of the time when he
yeah,
loses, it's because like Reed kind of goads him into like doing so because he hates Reed, obviously.
yeah,
Like that's the and what's weird is that like in a fight, Doom it's over
it
for Reed.
embodies
Like
most people.
it's over. But because he's such an egotistical guy, and Reed Richards has always been just a bit smarter than him. He got the girl and stuff like that. It just
Yeah,
drives him wild. Like he can't stand it. And that's what happened with the actual Secret Wars in
yeah,
the book, because that was pretty much what it was all about. Is that Doom was a god. He literally
yeah.
was the god of the multiverse. And it was just Reed Richards pretty much, goading him, and also Miles giving Molecule Man a hamburger that
Right,
pretty much saved the day.
as you do. Uh, yeah, I think it's interesting. I do think it will be a bit of a rug pull if like with the MCU, and with the MCU at the minute, I'm not really impressed with like Secret Wars and stuff. Sorry, Secret Invasion. It's been lackluster, and they seem to just be heading down a path where they don't really know what they want to do. Like it's messy, and then you've got the whole situation with Jonathan Majors, and it's like, are they gonna do Kang? Are they not gonna do Kang? Are they gonna recast Kang? And then it's like, if they had to do that, a big rug pull would be like Kang is like not the big bad of this phase, and then Doom basically just one shots him, and it's like, oh my god, it's actually Doom. Like, because if I'm right, that's kind of what happens in the comics. It's like Kang is like messing with stuff, but then Doom just kind of takes over and becomes like God Emperor Doom or whatever. I don't know that much
Yeah,
about it,
yeah.
but I know he's the actual big bad of like that whole thing where he like rules over the multiverse. So it would be interesting if they do that in the films, but we'll see, I guess.
I kind of would want that, even if Jonathan Majors gets cleared of everything and they do Kang anyway.
Yeah,
Um, I would be totally like I love the thought of, and I get it because the Fantastic Four film is stupidly close to Avengers, that you can't really do that because you don't want to introduce Doom before the Fantastic Four, because as much as
yeah.
Doom is a big bad, he is still heavily tied to
Well,
at
there was
least
leaked concept art of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Originally, it there was going to be a post credit scene where it turns out that Doom was actually the one orchestrating the whole thing, basically about like getting Wakanda and how do you say the name of how do you say the name of the underwater cities? I can't say it. You know what I mean.
Atlantis, right? It's
Yeah,
MCU
yeah.
Atlantis.
Yeah, basically. And he like he orchestrated that whole thing where he was like pressuring he was pressuring Namor's people into saying, everyone's going to take your vibranium, and he was stirring the whole pot basically. And there was going to be a post credit scene where like somebody from the US meets up with Doom, and they were like, we've this is how it's resolved kind of thing. I don't know the exact details of it, but I know there was concept art out there of it being leaked. And it looks pretty legit, like it's actually a real thing. So
What's
looks
interesting,
like
I
they were
remember that
potentially
concept
gonna
art.
introduce him.
The the guy that was talking to Doom from the back looks a little like Gravik, his human form.
Yes, yes, correct. You're correct. I think that's what it was. So that this is what I'm saying about like the whole MCU kind of doesn't seem to know what it's doing, because when you get leaked concept art where it's like Gravik is like reporting back to Doom, and then that could have tied into Secret Invasion, that would have been awesome. Like if they'd have done the whole, like Gravik's actually secretly working for Doom, he's got plans in the background, and he's like manipulating the scrolls into hating humans, and that would have been awesome. And they've just not done it, and it's like, why? It's weird.
And then the ending of see, I don't know if anyone cares about spoilers, but the ending of Secret Invasion being like, yeah, by the way, the world hates scrolls even more now. Talos died for pretty much nothing, and
Yeah,
Fury's just fucked off with his wife, and nothing's been resolved. And Guy is now the most super powered person in the
yeah.
entire Marvel universe. Like,
It's
who
just
is
like,
this person?
yeah, it's just silly. It's like they've gone in such a weird direction where like it feels like there's no stakes. Like I just don't care. You know what I mean? Like it's like when
Mm.
on the run up to like Endgame, I was like, I actually really care about like these characters and what's happening and everything that it's leading up to. But right now, I'm like, nah,
I
I have
get
no
that. Yeah,
investment
I think
in
that's fair.
like there's no like there doesn't seem to be any interconnectivity. And I'm not saying that everything has to have a post credit scene leading up to something else, but it's like Secret Invasion doesn't feel like it's had an effect on the Marvel universe at all. Like if you didn't watch it, I don't feel like you'd miss anything. So
You're right. Yeah, yeah. I think
yeah,
that's kind of I think that's the big thing. I think that when the MCU is so focused on connective tissue and then they do something really random like Secret Invasion where it's like it is but it isn't, because like and nothing
yeah,
changed at the end of the show from how it started. And what's a shame is I actually liked it, but the
mm,
final episode kind of
botched it
made
a bit.
made the whole series sort of pointless. So I was a bit
That's
like,
what I
oh,
mean.
I
So
was
like
wasting my time.
I can forgive like the lack of internet of the lack of in MCU interconnectivity in something like She-Hulk because you're introducing a new character. The show is about She-Hulk, and it's her corner of the universe, and that's fine. Like that's okay. They don't need to do all these setups with She-Hulk. But when it's like Secret Invasion and it's Nick Fury who's led the Avengers, and these scrolls who can infiltrate all these different places, and it's like you expect that to have an impact on the rest of the universe, and it just doesn't. It just doesn't feel like it has at all. So
Secret Invasion in the books was built like for years. Like literally
yeah,
built for years, and it was heroes involved in it as well, and like who can you trust sort of situation. This Secret Invasion, in theory, with enough actual build up, could have been a Secret Avengers movie.
I've seen people say that recently, and I agree. Like it would have worked much better as an Avengers movie where like the current kind of roster of like people who are sticking around come together and they're not sure who to trust, and the extra bit of tension about that is like it's a brand new team. So like obviously Iron Man's gone, original Captain America's gone. So these new people haven't really worked together properly before. So they already don't kind of trust each other. And then you throw scrolls into that, and it would have been awesome. Like there's so much potential there, but I don't know. They don't seem to have the priorities um, organized at the minute. So I don't feel very invested in it, to be honest.
Yeah, I kind of liked Gravik as well, and I understand the motivations of like, you promised us this, and you literally like. And by the way, I've just got to get this out of the way. Fury saying or Gaia, but I guess Fury must have told Gaia to say it.
Yeah.
That like I looked for a few years and realized there wasn't planets. What happened to the farm planet that Thanos was on that literally has no one but him? I know that in the books, the scrolls actually go to that planet and just disintegrate because it's just not inhabitable for them. But like, you probably should
Yeah.
have said that because now people will nitpick. Like, nowhere
Yeah.
is right there. Like, there are plenty of planets
There's
that we
so
have
yeah, with the
seen.
Guardians films, it's like there are so many places that they could go, and like it's weird. Like it's actually a pretty big plot hole. Like, are you trying to tell me that like Carol Danvers left with the Skrulls in the 90s, which is when the first Captain Marvel film is set, and 30 years later almost hasn't been able to find one planet when she's already admitted, like when she's met up with the Avengers, she's like, yeah, I'm just going between all these different planets that have got all these different problems, and it's like you haven't been able to find one planet for the scrolls. Like, come on.
Yeah, she can literally travel like light years in space, and she can't find one that hasn't been discovered yet.
You know what would have
Like,
been cooler in that scenario is that it's not even what they should have done is planned ahead a bit better with Captain Marvel, and not had her go off looking for planets, but rather like that was the plan. Like she's like they stay on Earth, and there's a scene with Fury where he's like, "You'll stay on Earth for now. We're gonna sort you out," you know. And then what would have been better is like an actual character arc for Fury, where he is a very flawed individual, and to some extent he's quite self-centered in terms of looking after humanity, where he just decides to he does just use the scrolls like he's flawed and he makes a mistake and he does come to regret it in the show, but he doesn't bother looking for a planet for them. Like he does just use them and they don't even and he doesn't even try, but he tells them he's trying. You know, he tells them that he's in contact with Captain Marvel all the time and she's still looking, but she's not. She's off helping other people. And it could have been a big reveal where it was like you weren't actually even helping us at all. You just wanted to use us. You know, that would have been
Yeah,
better than
Nick
like,
Fury's had
oh,
a lot of arcs like that where like you
exactly,
can
he's
totally
actually a dick.
understand why, like, yeah, exactly, like you can
Yeah.
totally understand why anyone would want to kill him, but obviously the whole point is that the scrolls are doing worse now, which is what makes them the villains. But like this,
Yeah.
do you see, like
But
that's how you would turn that around? Because obviously that you risk, unless obviously what the Skulls did was in this show was like, well, at least the extremists were like, it was really bad. Like they killed a lot of
yeah.
people. But when you needed to do that, because if you're say you do that and Nick Fury's using these people, it'd be really hard to root for him unless
Yeah.
the Scrolls are doing something like really bad,
Exactly.
which
And like
is what happened.
and that's the problem because it's like Nick Fury is saying like, "Oh yeah, we did look, but we couldn't find anything," and it's like that is just a. It's not believable considering what we know about space in the MCU, and B, it would have just been more interesting. Like it would have been more. It would have had more depth to it if it turned out he was just basically ripping them off because he wanted to use them as spies, and like he was just a dick. Like, there's nothing
Yeah,
wrong with having a character flaw where he can have some growth from it, and he could have been like, you know what, I was wrong to do that. And they did kind of do that a bit. He was like, yeah, you know, I should have tried harder, but it would have been better, in my opinion, if he just never bothered to look and he just wanted to use them. And like,
I agree.
and then it's purely like he gets even more guilt then because this whole thing that's happened where the scrolls have turned like gone bad because they're so angry. It would have made even more sense because like they have actually full on been betrayed, not just failed. You know, but that we could talk about that for a while. But I'm probably gonna have to wrap it up there just because my partner's gonna be getting home with the kids shortly-ish. You know, got a
Oh yeah,
couple
I
of
gotta
bits I
get
want to
something to
do
eat
for
as
her.
well. I am
Yeah,
starving.
get that kebab down. Yeah. So that about wraps it up. Um, I know you're making a lot of comic book panel shorts at the minute, which are going really well for you. I've been really enjoying them. So, you know, for anyone who's watching now or anyone who catches the stream later, make sure you go and subscribe to Stardust channel at Slight Stardust. He's got really good comic panels if you like kind of exploring that side of things. Um, that's it, pretty much. Anything you want to just add on to the end?
No, I mean, yeah, no, not really.
No.
No, yeah, I think I'm good.
That's it. No, it was a good chat. We've had a pretty decent stream. Oh yeah, that's the only other thing is if we do a stream next week, it's going to be hosted over on Stars channel because that's kind of how we're doing it. We're doing a back and forth kind of system. So we'll try and think of something to come up with to talk about because we've covered quite a lot in terms of Marvel news that's out there at the minute. So unless something else drops, we'll probably just talk about what we can cover. And if there's nothing, we can always just have a break from it and come back to it when there's more. But yeah, the next stream, either way, whether it's next week or after that, will be over on Stars channel. So head over there and subscribe. That's it. Good talk. Nice bit of speculation, which is what I love to do. So yeah, enjoy your
Yeah,
kebab.
thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Take it easy.